Today we're going to talk about our U-boat series. This is volume 1. Each chapter is a separate standalone memory of a different warrior, mostly the guys from the U-boats. So let's take a look at volume 1. Chapter 1 is entitled The First U-Boat, and it tells the story of U-30 from the memories of Georg Hugel, who was the chief radio man on that boat. U-30 was the first boat on station, 1st of September 1939. It was the first boat to fire a torpedo. It was the first boat to blow up a rock they thought was a cruiser. It was the first boat to sink a ship. They sank the Athenia. They got into a lot of trouble over that. And it was the first boat into a captured French port. They went into Lorient while the city was still in flames. Chapter 2 is entitled The Top Submarine Commander. I don't think we need to know who that refers to. Otto Kretschmer. Otto and Mrs. Kretschmer were dear friends. They treated me as family. I had a sleeping room in their house. And here Otto tells some of his memories of the war, memories you won't find anywhere else. Chapter 3 is entitled From Sailing Ships to U-Boats in Paradise. Memories of Otto Giese, who was first officer on board U-405, and his good luck, he was transferred off just before it went out and had its battle with USS Bory, which cost both ships sunk. The entire German crew was lost. 1/3 of the American crew was lost, but he escaped that. He then went on board U-181, a Type 9D2. Then they went all the way to Southeast Asia, and unfortunately for them, Germany surrendered, and the Japanese did not treat them very kindly now because they were no longer allies. They were just surrendered, and the Japanese didn't look very kindly on people who surrendered. Chapter 4 is entitled An Old French Warship, and it's the memories of Captain Roberto Rigoli, who snuck into an Allied port and sank a fairly large ship he thought was an old French warship. Turned out it was the largest non-combat ship sunk by the Italian Navy in the entire war. Chapter 5, Gross Admiral Dönitz gives his impressions on what is needed for additional armament and updated equipment on the U-boats. This is from an official report that he made. Chapter 6 is entitled The Third Most Successful Skipper, and I think we know that's Erich Topp. He and I were also good friends. I've been to his home in Oberwinter more times than I can count. He's been here to the U.S. twice, and he gives us his memories, just some of them. The early days, mostly when he was commanding U-57 and how it was lost at Brunsbüttel. Chapter 7 is entitled A Hard-Drinking U-Boot-Fahrer, and it is the story and the memories of Otto Dietz. He was the medic, Sonnestatsmaid it's called, on board a very rare boat, U-180, one of only 2 Type 9D1 boats made. And he was on board when that boat took Subhas Chandra Bose to the Indian Ocean to meet with a Japanese sub to bring Bose and his assistant, Dr. Abad Hassan, to Japan to form the Indian National Army. These are Otto Dietz's memories. He got kicked off of U-180 because he was drunk too often, sent to a punishment battalion on the Eastern Front. Fortunately for him, the Russian sniper wasn't all that good and just wounded him, so they sent him to a hospital in Berlin. He recovered, and because he was a medic, they put him to work in the hospital. Well, then one day, the first officer of U-180 came through, who was chasing one of the nurses there, and he saw Otto, and he said, "Hey, I'm on my way to take over my new submarine. You're coming with me." That was Harold Lange, and they went to take over U-505. Chapter 8 is entitled The Drum Beater, and I think you can see why. These are the memories of Reinhard Hardagen. He was a member of Shark Hunters from 1985, as were Top and Kretschmer. All of them were good, solid members up until their death. Hardagen had a house so big in Bremen over Neuland that he had to have two addresses, 16/18 on his street. In this chapter, he tells all about his time in the war, up to and including Paukenschlag. I've been to his house I don't know how many times. He was a fine gentleman. Chapter 9 is entitled The Italian Submarine Capellini, and it tells about the voyages of the Capellini to the South Atlantic and how several of the boats they were supposed to meet up with never made it. Chapter 10 is entitled The Gallant Degen, and it is from the memories of Horst Degen, how he came over to the United States, how he laid mines in front of the Norfolk Naval Base, and how he was caught by surprise running offshore, bombed and sunk, how he and several men escaped from the central control room, but one by one they gave up and drowned until there was only a handful left. He was going face down in the water when a U.S. Navy Catalina landed and yelled at the few guys left that this guy was drowning, and oh, it was the skipper. He and the pilot of the Lockheed Hudson who sank him, and the pilot of the Catalina who came back to pick them up, all became friends. And he talks about it in this chapter. Chapter 11 is entitled USS Bory versus U-405, and this is told from the fire control chief Bob Maher, who watched the entire battle from high above the bridge at his position as a gun director. He tells in vivid detail of the battle, of the men trying to surrender, of the men getting hit by the machine gun fire, the loss of both USS Bory and U-405, the loss of the entire German crew and 1/3 of the American crew. At the end of the chapter, you'll wonder who really won that battle. The next chapter is from the memories of Axel Olaf Löwe, the first skipper of U-505, and he tells in great detail of his exploits in the South Atlantic, the ships he sank, and of his boat almost being sunk by dive bombers. Chapter 13 is from the memories of Captain Dan Gallery, later Rear Admiral, the skipper of the Guadalcanal Task Force that captured U-505. Chapter 14 are the memories of a crewman of U-505. He tells in great detail about the battle and the capture. Chapter 15 is entitled Our Boats from the Caucasus to Gibraltar. And these are the memories of Al Nusser, who was a crewman on the rum boats that were pushed further and further west by the on-rushing Soviets. He talks about that in this chapter. Chapter 16 is entitled The Youngest Combat Commander, and you'll see here my best friend in Germany, Hans-Georg Hess, who was 4 months past his 21st birthday when they gave him command of a German U-boat and sent him out into the Arctic Sea. This was at a time the U-boats were not coming back from their first war patrols. 9 out of 10 were sunk on their first time out. He made 5 war patrols, sank some ships, and brought his men back alive every time. After the war, he became a doctor of law and was very hardcore right-wing patriotic. I've been to his home more times than I can count. He's been over to the U.S. a few times. Chapter 17 is entitled The Last Voyage of U-3030, and the title pretty well tells what's in it. One of the crewmen from U-3030 gives his memories of the closing moments of the war and how they tried to escape. Did they make it? It's in the book. Chapter 18 is entitled What's a Torpedo Between Friends? And these are the memories of Lieutenant Harold McCormick, who was a gunnery officer on board the Liberty ship William Gaston when it was sunk by U-861 under Jürgen Osten. Both men were members of Shark Hunters, and Hal gives his memories here, and both these guys joined us at a Shark Hunters convention in Chicago. They became good friends after the war. Chapter 19 is entitled Gallantry at Sea. It's the memories of Oberleutnant zur See Helmut Schmuckel, who was commander of U-802. He even wrote a book entitled Humanity on the High Seas, and in this chapter he tells some of his memories of the war. Incidentally, those who think Hitler wanted to kill all the Jews, Helmut Schmuckel was a Jew. He was a good friend of mine, and we met many times for lunch in Germany, and he was a U-boat commander. Chapter 20 is entitled The U-Boats Begin to Surrender, and it's comprised of the memories of Jim Visigian, who was a U.S. Navy signalman, and his job was to be in the signal tower at Portsmouth Navy Base and record the numbers, etc., of all the German U-boats coming in to surrender after the war was over. Chapter 21 is entitled An American on a German U-Boat. You're just going to have to read the book to find out about that. This book is available from Shark Hunters. You can look at www.sharkhunters.com, go to shop, and go to books, or go right to Amazon and get it that way. You're going to love it. We guarantee it, like everything that comes out of Shark Hunters is guaranteed. You're going to love it, or send it back for a full refund of your purchase price. In 30 years of publishing books, not one single book has been returned. Enjoy the book.